Good afternoon. Today we are joined by Jose Rivas from CRW Architecture and Design Group. Thank you for joining us, Jose. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and CRW?
Well, hello. My name is Jose Rivas. I'm an architect. I am a principal and one of the owners with local architecture and interior design firm, CRW Architecture and Design Group. Have been in business now for a little over 10 years as an independent firm, and have been in Rochester since 1993. So it's the place where I've spent most of my life now.
So Jose, I know you didn't go to college, or at least you didn't finish college in Rochester. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like to move somewhere new for your career?
Okay, well, Rochester, I wasn't really a stranger to Rochester, and Rochester wasn't strange to me. My father was a physician, and I had started my college career in Rochester after high school. My family, and I grew up, or I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. And after high school, I came to Rochester because we had family friends who worked at the Mayo Clinic. And, you know, before going out, you know, to college, you know, cold turkey, leaving the family, I decided to go to a place that was familiar to me, and came to Rochester and started my college career at the Rochester Community College at the time, where I studied and did some of my prerequisites or electives my first year of college before I moved to Fargo, North Dakota to go to school, to architecture school at North Dakota State. After completing my Bachelor of Architecture degree in 1989, I got my first job out of college working for an architecture firm in Duluth, Minnesota. And that's where I completed the required post-college internship that you need to complete in order to be eligible to become a licensed architect in the state of Minnesota. You have to do a 3-year internship where you work under the supervision of a licensed architect. Then I sat in for my tests, my exams, and an opportunity came up in 1993 to move to Rochester and work for the firm of Yagi Colby Associates, which was a larger architecture and engineering firm in town, mostly engineering, where I worked my way up from being a staff architect all the way to being a principal in charge of the architecture group. And then in 2010, as a result of the slower economy that began in 2008, I moved away from Yagi Colby and started our own firm, CRW Architecture, where I'm the primary majority owner and principal. That's kind of my career in a nutshell.
So Jose, what made you decide to get into architecture as a career?
Well, since I was a little kid, you know, it was a family expectation in my family, and in my own expectation, I guess, that we all my siblings would have to go to college, you know, for whatever our interest was. So I knew, you know, from early on that college was something that was expected. From very little, I really had a fascination with miniatures and scale models. I really liked aviation also, which I then, turned that into collecting model airplanes. Always had an interest in building models, an interest for drawing and art. And since becoming a pilot wasn't really in the cards because I needed mom's approval, um, I ended up choosing architecture as an outlet for that, that passion early on for model building and design.
So, Jose, you touched on it a little bit, but why don't you talk to us about what kind of skills are necessary to be an architect?
Well, you have, like pretty much everything else, like if you do what you love, uh, it kind of comes natural. Um, in terms of special skills, when I went to college, it was a little bit different time. I graduated in 1989, which was, the very beginning of, of the use of personal computers and the internet. Uh, so we drew everything, all the plans and all the design had to be done by hand. So you had, or I had to have those hand skills in my earlier career, or the earlier part of my career as an architect, uh, where communicating by drawing by hand was a necessary skill. As I've grown in my career and in the profession, and with the advent of computer-aided drafting and design, CAD, um, those computer skills have become more and more necessary in order to be able to do our job. So I guess as an architect, some of the skills you need are knowledge of computer programs for drafting, like AutoCAD. There's SketchUp, Photoshop, all those graphic type programs, and also a skill that we have to really develop and polish to be successful architects is our ability to communicate, not only with the people we work with day in and day out, because of the collaborative nature of the profession. We have to talk to a lot of people to get the job done. It is truly architecture is, and designing buildings is a team effort. So you have to have that skill of being able to communicate, listening, listening to your clients, understanding what the problem that they're hiring you to solve is. So your design solutions are appropriate solutions to the problem that they bring to us to work on. So the technical skills are important, but then the people skills, being able to communicate effectively, is another set of skills that is important to have.
So, Jose, if you were talking to a student, how would you suggest they go about learning the kind of communication and listening skills that you were just talking about?
Well, your first love or your first interest really has to be uh, closer to that technical side. So as you're learning and growing, um, taking courses in art, art appreciation, uh, drafting, anything that would provide a student with an outlet for expressing their creativity and understanding, aesthetics and art is going to be important. But then, getting involved in things like speech or debate, those are very good activities to get involved in as a high school student, because those are the outlets where you will start polishing and being comfortable with making uh, presentations and essentially selling your design. You know, you can't just put up a picture of a design on a wall and expect people to understand it and buy into it without really having the opportunity to explain it in a way where you can bring people into your train of thought as you develop that design. So, you know, drawing the picture is important, but being able to communicate what your intent or your intention was and why your solution is the most appropriate as an architect, that's very important. So speech, debate, you know, Toastmasters, if there is such a thing in high school, those are good things to do to get better at it.
So Jose, let's talk a little bit more about the technical skills that are required and really what kind of classes you would take in high school to get the technical skills that you need to be an architect.
Drafting, if that is available, AutoCAD, drawing classes, technical drafting, those are good classes to take. You know, if you go to a school where there's and there aren't very many of them anymore, but there's woodworking shop. Those are really important classes to have to develop, you know, the ability to see how things connect, how things are put together. You know, there's a lot of similarities between building a dresser and understanding how the pieces go together and what the function of it is, as there is in designing a building. It's all design, putting pieces together. It's like a puzzle. So, you know, shop, pottery, being able to create with your hands, and also, you know, getting involved. You know, a lot of people don't think about it, but getting involved in sports is good. It's a good outlet to become an architect and gain some of the skills, because you do have to work as a team. It is a team effort, like I said earlier. You know, to be able to design a building, you have to work with many different people. Different people on the design team will have or play different roles. You know, as the architect, you're like, you can be the coach, you know, or let's say the quarterback on a football team, but you're working with, you know, engineers that are part of also the team. They can be your, you know, your running back, your line players, and you all have to work together and coordinate your efforts to make sure you have a design solution that's appropriate. So learning from being part of a team is really, it's a really important skill to develop that you may not necessarily develop in a class, but you could develop with other outlets like playing team sports, for example, or being in band, or, you know, what you accomplish in band, if you're into music, is very close to what you accomplish as an architect, part of a design team designing a building.
Let's talk about the educational steps that are necessary. You talked before about high school, college, and then you referenced something that's even kind of a little bit beyond that. So if you could kind of walk us through what those educational steps would be, that would be great.
Sure. There are, you know, there are several tracks a person can take towards a career in architecture. Some of them don't require becoming a licensed architect. You could study architecture or interior design and still work in a firm designing buildings or working on the design of buildings. But in order to be an architect, architecture is a licensed profession, and as such, you know, requires a lot of ongoing continuing education that you have to do over the years in order to maintain your license. But in order to get your license to begin with, you have to obtain a degree from an accredited university or program. And more, that degree that is necessary, nationwide is basically a master's of architecture. So that takes, your initial 4 years of college for your bachelor's degree. Then you have 2 more years to obtain a master's degree. Then after that, so you're now up to 6 years, you have to do a 3-year, at minimum, internship working after college for an architect where you are under the direct supervision of a licensed architect. And only after you complete that 3-year internship, so now we're talking 9 years later after high school, can you apply to take the licensing exam, which is an 8-part exam that you have to take and pass, and then you become a licensed architect. So, right now, I would say if anyone being on a fast track to become an architect, it's probably in the 9 to 10 year time frame after high school.
So one of the things that people who are watching this are really going to want to know is, are you working in that 3 years that you're an intern? And frankly, are you getting paid?
Absolutely. After you're done with your college education and you get that first job out of college, that is your internship. And if you are on a track where you want to become licensed, you definitely want to be working in a firm where you're going to be getting that supervision and that mentorship from a licensed architect. But it is a job. That internship period is a job like any other job. After college, you get paid. The pay is probably not as much as you would make in other careers. Especially after 6 years of college, there are other things that one could study that would probably have a higher pay right out of college for that first job. But it's it all depends on the person's, the individual skills and drive. I would say everyone, because of computers again, and the ability to have the computers and the drafting on computers level the playing field a little bit, because the hand skills are not as important anymore. Everyone starts probably, depending on the market and geographically where they're located, earning a salary probably in the $20 to $22 an hour, which is a little bit over $40,000 a year. So there's room, even though that's the starting salary, as you or as a person develops and shows their skills and their drive, the move up in pay and in responsibility in the firm that they work is it happens fairly fast.
So Jose, as principal, what does your average day look like now? And what does the average day look like for a new architect who's coming in?
Okay, let's start with like a new recent graduate. Most firms, and this is just the traditional setup. Now with what we've gone through in 2020, that's kind of thrown things up in the air a little bit as to where people work and what their day entails. But as a recent graduate who's starting out in their internship, they can, depending on the size of the firm they work for, they will be doing things like working on simpler design problems. You would be doing a lot of tabulating and note-taking for projects, like developing things like a building program, which is, going to meetings, with the project architect and taking notes as to what, for example, the spaces that will be in a building are required to be, and then taking that information back to the office and start laying things out, much like using the same skills that you would while you're in college. Basically, the early stages of design. A normal day would also involve technical drafting and drawing details, putting together base plans for buildings, filling out schedules, a lot of computer work. Again, depending on the size of the firm you work for, if you're working in a larger firm, it is easier to become just kind of part of the background and get pigeonholed doing, you know, what some people might think of as mundane tasks. If you happen to work in a smaller firm that has a lot of projects, then you will be having the opportunity to do and experience more things as they are design related. As far as what I do now, you know, 30 some years after graduating from college, I am a principal in the firm, so I deal more with the contracting issues with our clients. I do a lot of management of people within the office, management of staff, making sure people are working on the right projects, you know, that kind of like coordinating the teams to make sure every project is well staffed. Doing a lot of human resources and just banking stuff. Very little of what I thought I would be doing when I was in college, which was designing buildings. But, you know, my days just have more hours than a normal, you know, 8-hour day. You have to work, you know, a normal day for me would be 12 hours doing really work related stuff. And then the rest of the time is promoting the firm, doing client contact. When you have a career in architecture, you know, being an architect is really part of who you are, and it isn't something that you do as a job where you just show up at work at 8 in the morning and leave at 5, and it all stays in the office. My work day can be, you know, those hours, but it also is what I do after hours, and when I'm at home, people still call, and the problems to solve are still there. So it's you know, it never really, you never get out of the mode of being, you know, in your career, being who you are as an architect. A lot of times, you know, when you're in a creative profession or a profession that requires creativity and problem solving, a lot of the times the solutions to the problems, you know, come in a dream or come in the middle of the night when after your brain just kind of shuts down for a couple hours, you may wake up thinking, oh, I got it. You know, the solution that I couldn't find for the last couple of weeks, it just comes to you in the middle of the night. So you get up and you start putting it down. So it's, I think it's a pretty exciting and always changing profession because of that creativity involved.
So thank you, Jose, for answering all these questions. You've done a very good job of explaining what it's like to be an architect. Kind of the last question to wrap us up here is, if someone were to want to contact you, how would they go about doing so?
You know, calling me on the phone is usually as good a way as any to get a hold of me. Our number here in the office is 507-206-6201. And email also works. I have, you know, part of the everyday, and whoever has questions that I can, answer or offer guidance to in regards to architecture, they can contact me on email at jrivas, that's JRIVAS, at crwarchitecture.com. That is my contact information here at work, and I'm always open to help out and offer any guidance I can to anyone who may be considering going into architecture, going to school for architecture.
Thank you again, Jose, for a great interview. I'm sure that the students who are watching this will very much enjoy it, and I appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Take care.